The music in the Langley Manor ballroom pulsed like a living heartbeat, but no one looked at Morel Ashdown. She stood beneath a chandelier of cold crystal, clutching the frayed strap of a borrowed dress, while laughter pressed in like a wall. Girls in frost blue silk flowed around her as if she were a column to avoid. Someone's shoulder clipped her and muttered, "Who let the charity case in?" Her throat burned. She tasted orange peel and copper, a bitter mix of punch and shame. She could feel eyes, not on her, but sliding away, as if ignoring were sport. A violin shrieked when the doors opened to the winter night. The wind brought snow and the scent of pine and wolf. Whispers cut the air. The Alpha King was here. Morel's fingers trembled. She had never seen him, only the posters. A stern profile, a crown like iron thorns. Servants hurried to clear a space, as though the floor itself needed to bow. Morel sank back toward a pillar, trying to make herself smaller, trying not to think about how every bruise on her heart had learned to live in silence. Tonight, silence felt like a blade she swallowed whole. A golden cackle burst from a cluster of airs near the punch bowl. A Tiber Maloran tipped his glass toward Morel and whispered too loudly, "Foundling, flee!" The word hit harder than winter. The charity board had paid for tonight, with conditions. Smile, serve, stay invisible. She had come because Miss Ello said sponsors noticed girls who behaved. Behave when your skin itches with the knowledge you are no one's chosen. The orchestra slid into a waltz, 100 feet carving circles into the polished oak. Morel's shoes were scuffed. The left heel wobbled like a secret. She reached for a candied orange slice, starving, when a hush rolled across the room and stilled her hand. He entered, a man carved from midnight, coat ink black, crown of hammered steel, eyes gray as a river just before it freezes. He didn't look at the Duchess or the mayor. He walked straight through the seam of bodies toward the pillar where Morel tried to become stone. Tiber's smirk faltered and faded. Morel heard her heartbeat in her ears. The king stopped before her. Snow dusted his shoulders like stars. His voice was low enough to make the crystal tremble. "Dance with me." For a heartbeat, she thought he was speaking to someone behind her. Morel glanced over her shoulder at the pillar's shadow, expecting a lady made of light to step through. No one did. Heat flamed up her neck. Words jammed behind her teeth like stones. She had never been asked for anything by a king, not even by a baker. Her fingers opened and the candied orange fell, sticking to the floor with a wet kiss. Your Majesty, I don't know how," she whispered, because lies had always protected her from worse hurts. A giggle crackled from the punch bowl like kindling. Tiber's voice slithered. "She'll trip you, sire." The king's eyes stayed on hers, searching, as if reading a secret in her bones. "I like the truth," he said, and held out his hand, palm open. The orchestra gathered itself, bows lifting like wings. Morel saw a thin scar across his knuckles, the only imperfect thing about him. She thought of Miss Ello's rules, of rent due, of the posters warning no strays after moonrise. Her heart said run, her feet said stay. She placed her hand in his. Warmth shot up her arm, like thunder in a church. They stepped onto the open floor, and the crowd peeled back as if the tide had taken them. The king's hand settled at her waist, respectfully, carefully, like he knew how to hold things that break. Morel's body remembered what her mind didn't. Her mother's hands guiding her tiny steps across a creaking kitchen. 1, 2, 3. The waltz carried her like a river carries a fallen leaf. The chandeliers blurred into crowns of fire. She could smell him now. Rain on stone, iron, cedar, and something wild beneath it all. Murmurs swelled along the wall. Who is she? Why her? Then shifted into sharper whispers. Isn't that the foundling from the orphan house? Someone hissed. A woman's perfume sliced the air like limes. Morel's heel caught. The king guided her through the stumble, effortless, as if her flaw were part of the dance. Breathe, he said. She did, and the room changed temperature. Her skin prickled as invisible moonlight found her through the roof. The band climbed to the swell, and the floor felt alive under her feet. Something old stirred in her chest, neither fear nor hope, but a door between them. She looked up and saw for an instant a wolf's shadow crown his face. The music stopped too soon. Silence flooded in, thick as smoke. Morel's hand slipped from his, and applause rose like rain on tin. She blinked, dazed, aware of every eye cutting through the dim light. Cael Draven, the Alpha King, did not bow. He looked at the crowd as if he'd just chosen a queen from their midst. Gasps rippled. Tiber's glass cracked between his fingers. "Your Majesty," the Duchess stammered, "she's nobody." Cael turned his head slightly. The wolf in his eyes surfaced, a quiet warning. Morel stepped back, heart racing. She could smell snow again, stronger now, and beneath it something that felt like destiny unfolding. Names are given by men. Worth is written by the moon. He took her hand once more, pressed it to his heart, and walked away through the open doors into the storm. For the first time in her life, no one laughed. They just watched the girl everyone had ignored. The girl who had danced with the Alpha King.
Snow fell over the orphanage roof that night, thin flakes drifting through cracks in the attic where Morel slept. She was 12 when she first heard the wolves. Not the howls the other children feared. These were soft, almost human, carrying her name on the wind. Morel. She'd run to the window and seen eyes, silver and sad, watching from the forest edge. The matron said she dreamed too much, that no one wanted girls with strange eyes and stranger instincts. Morel learned to hide both. She scrubbed floors until her knuckles split and listened to other children brag about letters from parents she never had. Yet sometimes, when the moon turned full, something deep inside her ached, like a song she almost remembered. The matron locked her in the cellar those nights, for safety, though she never said whose. In darkness, Morel would hum back to the forest, her voice trembling with both fear and longing. By 16, she'd earned a position at the Ello charity home. They dressed her in gray, fed her little, and taught her to smile for donors. Miss Ello liked things tidy, stories, girls, reputations. "You owe this town your gratitude," she'd whisper when Morel hesitated to curtsy. Gratitude tasted like rust and swallowed pride. She watched other girls adopted, married, saved. For her, the sponsor smiled too tightly, muttering about her eyes. Not quite human, are they? Morel clipped roses for fundraisers and pressed the thorns into her palms until she could no longer feel the sting. Still, sometimes she'd wake to find scratches across her arms, shaped like branches, like something trying to pull her out. On those mornings, she'd see paw prints in the frost beneath her window. The matron would scold the groundskeeper, blaming stray dogs, but Morel knew the pattern. They matched the rhythm of the wolves that once whispered her name. Rumors spread before she did. The baker's wife swore she saw Morel's shadow moving when Morel stood still. The priest said she should confess impure ancestry. Miss Ello threatened to send her away, but the Langley Gala needed serving girls, and pity made good publicity. "Keep your head down," Miss Ello warned. "Do nothing to draw notice. Royal wolves attend, and they don't fancy strays." Morel promised obedience, though something inside her flared at the word wolves. The capital of Draylon had long bowed to the rule of the Alpha King. Cael Draven. But most humans never saw him, only his decrees sealed in silver. They said he'd lost his mate to hunters years ago. They said his heart had frozen with her body. Yet when Morel heard his name, her pulse stumbled. She didn't know why. That night before the gala, she dreamed again of the forest, of eyes like rivers and a voice that whispered, "Soon, child, the moon remembers what men forget." The morning of the gala was bitter cold. Morel stood before the cracked mirror, pinning borrowed ribbons into her hair. The dress sagged at the shoulders, smelling faintly of lavender and dust. She'd promised herself not to hope. Hope had teeth. Still, when she looked at her reflection, she wondered, if her parents ever existed, would they recognize her now? Outside, carriages rattled across frozen cobblestone, carrying nobles whose perfumes cost more than her life. She carried trays, fetched napkins, endured orders barked like commands to a ghost. Every time she crossed the ballroom threshold, the scent of pine drifted in from the forest, and her skin tingled with a pull she couldn't explain. By sunset, she was invisible again, a shadow between chandeliers. Until, of course, the doors opened and Snow entered with a crown, until the Alpha King's eyes found hers across the room like an arrow finding its mark. Now replaying the night from her narrow attic bed, Morel pressed her hands to her chest where his warmth had lingered. The waltz, the whispers, the way he'd looked at her as if he'd been searching for years. The king's words echoed, "Worth is written by the moon." She remembered the cellar nights, the moon slicing through the bars, the humming that felt older than language. Could it be possible that she belonged to the same blood the kingdom feared? Beneath her window, snow shifted softly, and she heard it again, a low call from the woods, answered by something within her bones. For the first time, she didn't hide her eyes. She went to the window, breath fogging the glass, and whispered into the cold, "I hear you." A single wolf stepped from the tree line, silver as his crown. It bowed its head. Somewhere beyond the hills, the Alpha King smiled.
Dawn cracked open like pale glass above the orphanage roof. Morel hadn't slept. The king's voice still hummed beneath her ribs, steady as another heartbeat. She sat at her window, tracing patterns in the frost, when pain knifed through her wrist, sharp, quick, alive. She gasped and pulled up her sleeve. A faint light bloomed under the skin, a crescent mark pulsing in silver. It wasn't a scar. It moved, like something breathing just beneath her flesh. Panic gripped her. She scrubbed at it until the skin burned, but the light only grew clearer. The same wolf from last night watched from the trees, head tilted. Morel stumbled back. Her breath came in clouds. Downstairs, the bell rang for morning chores. Ordinary sounds, pretending the world hadn't changed. She wrapped her wrist in cloth and whispered, "Don't be real." But the glow answered with warmth, and for the first time, she felt less like she was breaking and more like she was becoming. By midday, whispers had reached Miss Ello. "You're pale," she snapped, eyes narrowing, "and you reek of forest." Morel forced a smile, hiding her bandaged arm behind a tray of tea. "Just tired, ma'am." The woman sniffed. "No one likes sick girls at events. You'll ruin our image." She thrust a letter toward her. "Deliver this to the Royal Courier's Post, quickly." Morel nodded and slipped outside, boots crunching on snow. The world smelled sharper now. Ink, smoke, pine sap, fear. She could hear things too. Carriage wheels miles away, the flutter of sparrows' wings, her own heartbeat syncing with something vast and unseen. At the post house, she paused beside a window and saw her reflection. The bandage leaked faint light through the fabric, the mark beating like a second pulse. "Moonborn," someone muttered behind her. Morel turned. An old hunter in a tattered coat stared, eyes like flint. "Stay inside, girl," he warned. "The king's men are hunting for the one who carries that mark." Morel froze. "Why?" The man spat into the snow. "Because that mark means you're his." The sky darkened too early, clouds curling like bruises.
Morel hurried home, heart pounding. The wind carried distant horns, royal horns. When she reached the orphanage gate, soldiers were already there, black armor, silver insignia of the wolf crown. Miss Ello stood in the doorway, wringing her hands with feigned politeness. "Search wherever you must, we've nothing to hide." Morel slipped around the side yard, pressing against the icy wall. She could smell iron on their swords, and something older, the faint musk of wolves disguised as men. Her wrapped wrist burned hotter, brighter, until she feared it would expose her. A soldier's voice barked, "The Alpha seeks a female bearing the lunar crest. Capture alive." Morel's throat closed. Capture alive. She backed away, feet silent on the snow, but a board creaked under her boot. Heads turned. She ran. The forest swallowed her whole. Branches tore at her dress, breath shredded in her throat. Behind her, torches split the dark, voices echoing her name like curses. "Run, Morel." The wind itself seemed to guide her, whispering between trees. Her wrist flared again, casting ghost light on bark and snow. Wolves appeared in the shadows, not hunters, not beasts, but guardians. Their eyes mirrored the moon's silver fire. One trotted beside her, silent, sure. She didn't question it. She followed where it led, to a frozen creek where mist hung low like breath on glass. When she stumbled, the wolf pressed against her leg, steadying her. "Why are they chasing me?" she gasped. It only blinked. Then the water rippled, though nothing touched it, and she saw reflected there not her face, but the Alpha King's, his expression torn between fury and relief. "Find me," the reflection said, "before they do." The image vanished with the wind. Morel fell to her knees, trembling. Snow gathered on her hair like feathers. In the distance, the horn stopped. Only the forest breathed now. She unwrapped her wrist. The mark had spread, reaching her palm like veins of light. She pressed it to the ice, and warmth melted a small circle through. Beneath the surface, something glowed back, a mirror mark, two halves calling to each other. She didn't understand how, but she knew she was linked to him, bound by something older than crowns. A howl rose across the hills, long, mournful, and unmistakably royal. The wolves around her lifted their heads and joined in. Morel whispered to the sound, "I'll come." Then she stood, gathering what courage the moon left inside her, and walked deeper into the woods. Behind her, the soldiers reached the creek's edge, finding only melting ice and paw prints that turned, halfway through, into the footprints of a girl no longer running.
Moonlight sifted through the trees like silver dust as Morel followed the wolves deeper into the forest. The air thickened with pine and ancient breath. Every sound, each crack of twig, each sigh of wind felt alive and listening. Her mark pulsed softly, lighting the path beneath her bare feet. The lead wolf stopped beside a great oak split by lightning. Its eyes flicked upward. "Inside," said a voice, not from its mouth, but inside her mind. Morel flinched, yet obeyed. She pressed her hand to the trunk. The wood shivered and opened like a door. Warm light poured out. She stepped through and gasped. A cavern stretched before her, lit by roots that glowed like veins of the earth. Wolves lounged in a circle, some shifting into men and women draped in furs. Their faces were neither kind nor cruel, only curious. A woman with silver braids spoke first. "So, the lost one returns." Morel backed away. "I don't understand." The woman's smile was sad. "You wouldn't. They made sure you forgot." The woman, Leora, offered her a cup of water that shimmered faintly blue. "Drink. It will steady you." Morel hesitated, then sipped. The taste was of rain and memory. Images crashed through her mind, flashes of fire, screaming, a cradle overturned, a man howling her name as soldiers dragged him away. She dropped the cup, shaking. "What was that?" Leora placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "The night your pack burned. You were the Alpha's daughter, hidden among humans to survive. Morel's heart stuttered. The Alpha's daughter? Leora nodded. King Cael's bloodline. When his mate was killed, he thought his child perished too. Morel's knees buckled. That can't be true. Yet inside, the mark burned brighter, answering what her voice could not deny. The pack bowed their heads, a low hum vibrating through the air like distant thunder. The moon never forgets her own, Leora said. But men do, and men are coming. A horn blared through the forest, closer this time, desperate. Leora's eyes snapped toward the entrance. Scouts! They found the trail. Whose? Both yours and his, Leora said. Cael searches for you, but others hunt to claim you first. A marked heir means power. The cavern buzzed with tension. Men shifted into wolves, muscles rippling under fur. Morel's body trembled as if her bones remembered what to do. I can't fight, she whispered. You don't need to, Leora said, pressing a small pendant into her hand, a half moon carved from bone. Find the clearing beyond the waterfall. He'll meet you there, and when the moon rises, your blood will remember everything. Morel clutched the pendant, eyes stinging. Why help me? Leora smiled faintly. Because once I failed to save your mother. I won't fail her child. Morel ran again, but this time the forest seemed to run with her. Branches bent away, snow softened underfoot, and moonlight threaded the air like guiding hands. Behind her, distant shouts tore the night. Men in armor, the hiss of arrows, the clash of fur and steel. She glimpsed wolves diving from the trees, protecting her with feral grace. At the waterfall, mist glowed pale and endless. She stepped into the pool's rim and looked up. The moon, whole and waiting. Her mark flared until it hurt. She cried out and dropped to her knees. Images flashed back. Her mother's laughter, Cael's arms lifting a small child, the same scar across his knuckles. The truth shattered through her. She wasn't just bound to him by fate. She was of him, blood, bone, and moon. The roar of the waterfall deepened into another sound, footsteps. From the mist emerged the Alpha King himself, cloak soaked, eyes glowing silver. For a breath, neither spoke. He looked older than the posters, more human and wild at once. You found me, he said softly. You called me, I answered. He reached out but stopped short, as if touching might break the vision. They told me you died. They told me I killed you. Morel shook her head, tears bright on her cheeks. You didn't, but they'll kill us both if we stay. Cael's jaw hardened. Then let them try. A horn blared nearby, shattering the quiet. He took her hand, warmth burning through the cold. Daughter of the moon, he said, voice low and reverent. Tonight, you awaken. The ground trembled as shadows approached. Wolves circled them, ready. And above, the moon began to bleed light like silver fire. The air split open with a sound of horns and snarling steel. Soldiers burst from the tree line, torches scattering sparks into the snow. Morel clutched Cael's hand as the wolves formed a shield around them, fangs flashing, eyes wild. The waterfall behind her thundered like a heartbeat. Stay behind me, Cael ordered, voice a blend of command and desperation. But the mark on her wrists burned until she screamed. Silver light spiraled from her palm, wrapping her like threads of fire. The nearest soldier raised his sword, then froze mid-swing, his weapon turning to ash. Morel stared, terrified. What's happening to me? Cael's eyes widened. The moon mark is waking. It recognizes danger. Another arrow flew. The light flared again, forming a shield that shattered the shaft mid-air. Power pulsed outwards, shaking trees to their roots. The soldiers faltered, some dropping their weapons, others whispering, "Witch."
But Cael knew better. Not a witch, he murmured, alpha-born. The sky bled red as the full moon rose, bathing everything in silver fire. Morel's breath came in gasps. Every heartbeat felt louder, heavier, ancient. The forest itself seemed to bow. Cael shifted before her, bones cracking, muscle expanding, fur bursting forth in a storm of black. The alpha wolf of Draylon stood where the king had been, towering, eyes like molten metal. Morel stumbled backward. The soldiers screamed and scattered, but the wolves gave chase, reclaiming the woods. When Cael turned toward her, his massive form trembled, not from rage, but restraint. "Do not fear me," his voice echoed inside her head, deep and resonant. "You are of my blood." The pendant in her fist glowed brighter, lifting into the air. Light spilled from it and flowed into her chest, wrapping her in warmth and pain all at once. Her knees hit the ground as her body convulsed, bones cracking like thunder. She thought she might die until she didn't. When she opened her eyes, the world looked different, sharper, alive. Every scent carried a story, every sound a meaning. She raised her hands, and they weren't just hands. Silver fur rippled along her arms before receding like a tide. She gasped, staring at them. Cael's wolf form lowered his head, pride and awe mingling in his gaze. "You carry both worlds," he said within her thoughts. "Human heart, wolf soul. The bridge our kind lost." The realization hit her like a storm. The moon hadn't cursed her, it had hidden her until she was ready. Around them, the last of the soldiers fled into the dark, their torches snuffed out by the wind. Morel stood, trembling, snow melting under her bare feet. "I don't know how to control this," she whispered. Cael stepped closer. "Then let the moon teach you." He raised his muzzle and howled. The sound was so pure it tore through her fear and filled her lungs with courage. She howled back. The answering cries from distant packs rolled through the night, shaking the mountain. Wolves appeared from the mist, dozens, then hundreds, bowing as one before the alpha and his heir. Morel's power shimmered like a halo of frost, her mark now stretching across her chest in elegant lines that pulsed with her heartbeat. Cael shifting back into his human form, breath steaming in the cold. "The prophecy spoke of this night," he said, voice heavy, "that the blood of two worlds would rise when the moon turned red." Morel frowned. "Prophecy?" He nodded. "Your mother was human, your father was a wolf. You were meant to unite the divided clans, but greed twisted the council, men who feared what they couldn't control." His expression hardened. "They tried to erase you and me with you." Morel looked toward the horizon where the soldiers had fled. "Then they'll come again." Cael's eyes gleamed. "Yes, but this time they'll find more than one alpha waiting." The night calmed. Snow fell slower, thick flakes glowing as they touched her skin. Morel's body ached from the transformation, but something deeper, older, felt whole. Cael draped his cloak around her shoulders. "Rest. Tomorrow we go north to the council. They must see who you are." She looked up at him, eyes shimmering with confusion and wonder. "And who am I?" He smiled faintly, something breaking in his voice. "You are the child they swore never existed, the proof that love between worlds can't be buried." Morel's gaze lifted to the moon, no longer red, but silver again, peaceful. "Then let them see," she whispered. "Let them see what they tried to kill." As the pack settled around the clearing, forming a living circle of protection, Morel closed her eyes. For the first time in her life, she wasn't running or hiding. She belonged. And far beyond the trees, unseen, a shadowed figure watched from the cliffs. Someone who knew her secret wasn't safe yet.
The morning after the battle smelled of ash and frost. Morel woke beneath a canopy of pine, the pack sleeping in a ring around dying embers. Cael stood at the ridge, silent, eyes fixed on the horizon where smoke curled from the valley, proof that men still hunted. "They won't stop," he said when she approached. "The council's afraid of what you are." She pulled his cloak tighter. "You mean what we are?" He half smiled, the first she'd seen since the Gala. "They'll twist your birthright into a weapon." A raven landed on a branch overhead, feathers slick as oil. Cael's gaze darkened. He's watching. Morel frowned. "Who?" "My brother," he said quietly. "The one the kingdom believes dead." The bird cawed once, harsh and knowing, before vanishing into the mist. The silence that followed was heavier than any roar. They broke camp before dawn. The wolves scouted ahead, their paws leaving no sound. As they moved north, the forest changed. Trees thicker, air colder, every shadow whispering secrets. Morel caught glimpses between trunks, shapes moving parallel, always distant, always watching. Cael noticed too. "He calls himself Varen now," he said, "exiled after he betrayed our pack." "What does he want?" she asked. "Everything that was mine, and now everything that is yours." They reached a ravine where frost clung to the stones like silver moss. Cael offered his hand to help her cross, but before she could take it, an arrow thudded into the ground between them. Smoke curled from the shaft, black smoke. "Down," he shouted. From the ridges above, wolves cloaked in armor appeared, eyes glowing amber instead of silver. Varen's soldiers, the shadow pack. A figure stepped from the mist, tall, lean, a smile carved like a scar. His eyes were gold fire. "Brother," Varen called, voice smooth as poison. "You bring a ghost into my woods." Cael growled low, the sound shaking stones. "You lost the right to these woods when you slaughtered our kin." Varen spread his arms. "And you lost yours when you mated with a human." His gaze slid to Morel. The mistake was reborn. Something primal flared inside her. The mark burned bright. Varen smiled wider. "Ah, she's awake." Cael stepped in front of her, but Varen's power rippled through the air, twisting the fog into claws. "Come now, little moon child. The council fears you, but I could teach you how to roll them." Morel's voice shook yet carried iron. "You kill for power. I fight to protect." "Protect," he laughed. "There's no peace between beasts and men." Lightning split the clouds, casting everything in white. Cael lunged midair, his black wolf colliding with Varen's silver-streaked form. The impact cracked the earth. Wolves clashed around them, shadow against light. Morel felt the pull of the moon ignite again. She pressed her hand to the ground and roots surged upward, wrapping enemy soldiers in vines that glowed silver. "Go," Cael's voice thundered inside her mind. "Find the crest stone. End his power." She ran toward the waterfall they'd crossed earlier, each step guided by instinct older than language. Behind her, growls and cries tore through the forest. Snow turned red, then white again as the wind covered it. She found the crest stone, a jagged monolith carved with runic runes, and felt the mark on her chest respond like a heartbeat meeting its twin. "Show me," she whispered, pressing her palm to it. Visions burst through her mind, two brothers born under the same moon, one crowned with love, one consumed by envy, a mother hiding her child, a betrayal sealed in blood. When she opened her eyes, the stone glowed hot beneath her hand, etching new lines, hers, across its surface. Power surged up her arm, spreading through her veins like lightning. The forest went still. Every wolf froze mid-fight as the moonlight bent toward her. Varen staggered back, his snarl twisting into disbelief. "Impossible," he hissed. Cael rose from the ground, bleeding but smiling. "You never understood. The moon doesn't choose power. It chooses the heart." Morel stepped forward, silver fire burning in her eyes. "And it has chosen me." She lifted her hand. The crest stone flared once, then shattered, sending a pulse that threw Varen and his army into the dark. When the light faded, only snow remained. Cael fell to his knees.
staring at her in awe and fear. You've done what no alpha ever has. You've awakened the moon throne.
The pulse of the shattered crest still echoed through the valley when dawn crept over the mountains. The snow no longer looked cold, it shimmered faintly, breathing with the same rhythm as Morel's heart. She sat beside Cael where he knelt, the pack gathered in a silent ring around them. "It answered you," he says softly. "The moon throne has returned." She looked at her hands, still traced with light that refused to fade. "I didn't mean to summon it." Cael shook his head. "You were born for it." From the distance, a low hum rose, the old wolves chanting words no human tongue remembered. Stone by stone, a circular platform lifted from beneath the snow, each slab carved with lunar sigils. The air tasted of silver. Morel felt the pull of the center, a throne not built but grown, shaped from living rock and moonlight. Yet when she looked at it, she saw not power, but burden. "They'll fear this," she whispered. Cael met her eyes, "Then show them why they shouldn't." By noon, the council arrived. Carriages gilded, banners stiff in the wind. Men and women in fur-lined cloaks stepped out, faces masked with civility and dread. Soldiers formed ranks. Priests clutched silver relics. At their head stood Lord Eldrick, the eldest, his voice brittle with age and pride. "Lord Alpha Cael," he said, "you defy the Treaty of Fire by raising that cursed seat again." Cael's tone was calm but edgy. "It raised itself." Eldrick's eyes cut to Morel. "Because of her." Murmurs rippled. "The half-breed, the reason wolves and men will never share peace." Morel stepped forward. "You call it peace when one side must kneel." Eldrick's jaw tightened. "Order must be preserved." "Order built on fear isn't order," she answered. For a heartbeat, no one spoke. Then the mark on her chest shimmered through her dress, and every torch dimmed. The priest stumbled back, whispering prayers. "The moon judges truth," she said quietly. "If my blood is blasphemy, let it strike me now." Lightning arced across the sky, but curved away, striking the council's crest instead. Gasps broke the silence. Cael stepped beside her, voice carrying like thunder. "She bears the moon's favor. Kneel." No one moved, until the youngest counselor, a woman with dark hair and trembling hands, lowered herself to one knee. One by one, others followed, fear melting into awe. Only Eldrick remained standing, face pale as ash. "You think this ends centuries of law," he hissed. "One girl cannot change what war has written." Morel met his gaze. "Then you've forgotten who wrote it first." The throne pulsed behind her, the light gathering around her shoulders like wings. "The moon doesn't ask permission to rise." Eldrick drew a dagger of silver, then let it set. He lunged. Time slowed. Morel lifted her hand, no power, only instinct, and the dagger dissolved into dust before touching her. Eldrick froze, eyes wide. "Mercy," he gasped. "You wouldn't." "No, but the world will." The ground beneath him opened, swallowing the weapon, not the man. Justice, not vengeance. When the thunder faded, the council kneeled fully. Cael turned toward the pack. "Your alpha is chosen." But Morel shook her head. "No, not above you, all of you. Beside." She stepped onto the throne's dais, the light softening until it became warmth, not power. This isn't a seat for one, it's a bond. Wolves and humans both have hearts that bleed the same. The old wolves began to howl, not in submission, but in harmony. Cael climbed the steps, stopping beside her. "You speak as your mother did." She believed love could rule stronger than fear. "Then let's prove her right." Together they pressed their palms to the stone. The runes flared and spread outward like sunrise, burning across valleys and towns. Every shackle forged by hate cracked. For the first time in centuries, the sense of peace filled the air. Sharp, new, trembling. Night returned gentle and clean. Fires burnt only for warmth, not war.
Morel sat beside Cael on the throne steps, wolves lying like shadows around them. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now," he smiled faintly, "we learn." She tilted her head. "To rule? To forgive." She looked at the moon, its light softer, almost proud. "I thought being ignored was the worst pain. Turns out being seen is heavier." Cael's hand rested over hers. "Then we'll carry it together." In the distance, the forest sang, 1,000 lives beginning again. Morel closed her eyes, breathing the scents of snow and cedar, hearing the heartbeat of the land steady beneath her. For once, no one whispered behind her. No one looked away. The girl everyone ignored had become the voice everyone followed. And far above, the moon shimmered its silent blessing, reflecting in 2 sets of eyes, father and daughter, guardians of a kingdom reborn.
Weeks passed, and the kingdom of Draylon began to breathe again. Wolves and humans traded in the same markets, laughter echoing where fear once lived. Children chased silver-furred cubs through the streets. Farmers lit lanterns shaped like moons, honoring the new peace. Yet beneath the harmony, whispers lingered. Some said the moon throne was a curse. Others said it blinded the Alpha King, who now listened too much to his daughter. Morel heard the rumors, but focused on rebuilding. The orphanage repaired, fields restored, hunters retrained as guardians of the forest. Still, at night, she felt eyes on her, like the forest itself was uneasy. Cael sensed it too. "Peace isn't the absence of war," he told her one evening. "It's the space where betrayal hides." Morel looked toward the moon. Its light was dimmer, almost bruised. "Then we'll face it when it shows itself," she said. Neither saw the shadow slipping from the tree line, a figure cloaked in wolfskin and silence. That night a messenger arrived, bloodied, trembling. "Your Grace," he gasped, "the consul's archive burned. Every record of the treaty is gone." Cael's expression darkened. "Who did this?" The man hesitated. "They left a mark on the door, a crescent turned upside down." Morel's heart sank. The Shadow Pack. Cael nodded grimly. Varen's followers, the ones who survived. The pack moved swiftly, doubling patrols, sealing mountain passes, but fires began erupting across border towns, always under moonlight, always with that inverted mark. Panic spread faster than smoke. In council, elders demanded vengeance. Younger wolves wanted proof. "If we attack first," Morel argued, "we become what they say we are." Cael studied her. "And if we don't, they'll burn everything we've built." The room was divided, peace versus pride. That was when the messenger returned, trembling again. "There's more," he whispered. "Someone within the court helped them." The betrayal hit like cold water. Cael dismissed the council and ordered the halls sealed. Morel paced beside the throne, the firelight throwing restless shadows. "Someone close. Someone who knows our defenses." Her mind flashed through faces. Leora, the healers, the scouts. Trust had never felt so heavy. Then a voice spoke behind her. "You can stop looking." She turned. The young counselor, the one who'd first knelt to her, stood in the doorway, eyes dull with regret. "Why?" she asked softly. The woman swallowed. "They promised to restore what you destroyed. Wolves ruling wolves. No half-blood, no throne of light." "You betrayed us for purity?" Morel's voice cracked. "For fear," the woman whispered. "They said the moon's power was fading, that only darkness could replace it." She dropped something onto the floor. A shard of the crest stone, glowing black. "It's alive," she said, "and it's calling them." The shard pulsed once, then twice.
Cracks spidered through the marble beneath it, thin tendrils of shadow stretching toward Morel's feet. Cael lunged, grabbing her arm, pulling her back. "Get the priest," he bowed. Before anyone could move, the shard burst open like a heart splitting in two. Black light shot through the hall, extinguishing every torch. For a moment, there was only darkness, and a voice that was not a voice, whispering from the cracks. "You stole what belongs to night." Morel felt her mark ignite in answer, white flame meeting black mist. "No," she said through clenched teeth. "The moon gives, it doesn't steal." The shadows hissed, forming the faint outline of a wolf, Varen shape, or what was left of it. Cael drew his blade, silver catching the faintest glow. "He's dead," Morel said. "Then what is that?" Cael's grip tightened. "Not him, his curse." The hall trembled as darkness surged again. Windows shattered, moonlight vanished. Morel reached for Cael's hand, but he pushed her back. "Get to the tower," he ordered. "If it spreads, light the beacon." "I won't leave you," she said. "You will," he snapped, "because they'll come for you first." The shadow wolf lunged, its form half smoke, half memory. Cael's sword met it midair, sparks flying. "Go!" he roared. Morel turned and ran, the mark on her chest glowing bright enough to cut through the dark. She climbed the spiral stairs to the tower, every breath raw, every heartbeat a drum. Outside, the city burned in patches of black fire. She reached the top, seized the silver torch, and thrust it into the sky. The beacon ignited, pure and blinding, scattering light across the kingdom. Below, Cael's roar echoed through the night. The battle for peace had begun again. But this time, it wasn't between wolves and men. It was between light and shadow.
The beacon's silver light burned across the sky, cutting through clouds like a blade. Morel stood at the tower's edge, wind howling around her, eyes locked on the spreading darkness below. The black fire crawled through the streets, devouring everything it touched. Wolves fought shadows that felt no pain, their bodies phasing through mist and reforming again. Cael's roar echoed from the courtyard, followed by silence that split her heart open. "No," she whispered, gripping the stone ledge until her nails broke. Then, faintly, she heard his voice, not with her ears but inside her mind. "End it where it began." The waterfall, the crest's heart. She turned, bolting down the tower steps, the mark on her chest pulsing faster with every beat. As she ran, soldiers, both wolf and human, cleared paths for her, recognizing something divine in her stride. The moon hung low and blood-red again, as if it was too braced for war. Morel crossed the gates, following the pool in her blood back toward the frozen woods. The forest greeted her with silence. Snow fell sideways, heavy, each flake glowing faintly as if unsure whether to choose dark or light. At the waterfall clearing, the pool was gone, replaced by a crater of smoke and bone. From its center rose the shadow wolf, massive and half-transparent, eyes glowing like dying coals. "You killed me," it growled, voice layered with echoes. "You stole my brother's throne." "You killed yourself," Morel answered, "when you choose hate over kin." The creature's laugh was jagged. "You think love makes you strong, it makes you slow." It lunged, faster than thought. Morel leapt aside, light flaring from her hands as claws grazed her shoulder. Pain seared white, but she didn't scream. The mark on her chest blazed brighter, shaping lines across her arms and face, ancient runes of the moonborn. "You're not my enemy," she said through gritted teeth. "You're the wound I have to close." The wolf snarled, "Then bleed with me." They clashed in bursts of light and shadow that shattered trees to splinters. Each strike sent ripples through the ground, shaking the mountains awake.
Morel's power grew with each breath, her heartbeat sinking to the rhythm of the moon above. She realized then that the light wasn't attacking, it was mirroring her intent. Every time she hesitated in anger, it faltered. Every time she fought to protect, it grew. The shadow wolf lunged again, jaws wide. She let it come, standing still until its form engulfed her. Pain screamed through her veins, darkness clawing at her memories, Orphan's laughter, Cael's eyes, her mother's lullaby. But she held on. "You can't consume what forgives you," she whispered. Light exploded outward, flooding the creature's chest, burning through its shape. The wolf staggered, eyes flickering between rage and sorrow. "I only wanted to be seen," it rasped. "Then see yourself," she said, and pressed her palm to her heart. The blast tore through the valley, blinding. When the light faded, Morel stood alone in the clearing, snow swirling around her like ash. The shadow was gone. Only the faint shape of a wolf's outline lingered on the ground, glowing softly before fading into the earth. Her strength failed, knees buckling. She fell, breath shallow. "Father," she whispered. For a moment, there was no answer. Then Cael appeared through the mist, limping, blood on his brow but alive. He knelt beside her, gathering her into his arms. "It's done," he said. She smiled weakly. "No, it's begun." He looked down at her mark. It was fading, no longer blazing with silver, but calm and steady, like a heartbeat at rest. "You contained it," he murmured. "You became the balance." She rested her head against his chest, feeling the slow thrum of life. "The light wasn't meant to destroy the dark, only to remind myself that I'm not alone." They watched the moon rise higher, no longer red, but pure white again. Around them, wolves emerged from the woods, silent, reverent, their fur silvered by dawn. The fires across Draylon extinguished all at once, as though the land itself exhaled. Cael looked toward the horizon where the first light of morning broke. "She's gone," he said, meaning the shadow. Morel nodded, though her eyes filled with tears. "No, she's home." She stood, weak but unbroken, the mark on her skin now only a faint shimmer. "Let the people rest," she said. "Tell them the war is over, not because we won, but because we chose to stop fighting." Cael smiled through the exhaustion. "You sound like your mother." "Maybe that's the point," she whispered. Together they watched the sky shift from black to gold. For the first time, light and shadow shared the same horizon. The moon faded behind the sun, but its reflection lingered, in Morel's eyes, in Cael's smile, and in the forest's quiet promise that peace, once earned, would never be forgotten.
A week later, the kingdom of Draylon woke beneath skies so clear they looked washed clean by grace. The moon still hung faintly, ghost-like, aside the rising sun, as if reluctant to leave. Morel stood at the balcony of Langley Keep, overlooking what had once been ruins. Now smoke rose only from cooking fires. Laughter echoed from rebuilt streets. The scent of bread, pine, and wet soil carried through the morning. She pressed her palms against the stone, breathing deeply. For the first time since she could remember, she didn't hear whispers of doubt or pity, only life. Cael stepped beside her, his limp faint but his spirit strong. "The council meets again today," he said, "this time to rebuild, not to rule." Morel smiled faintly. "Then let them learn to listen." Below, human children ran alongside wolf pups in the snow, their footprints intertwining. "They already are," Cael murmured. Inside the great hall, the moon throne glowed softly, not in dominance, but in welcome. Elders, farmers, and soldiers all sat together, no ranks, no walls. Morel addressed them not as queen, but as witness. "We've seen what power can do when it forgets compassion, so from today, the throne belongs to the people. The moon watches all, not to command, but to remind." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Agreement, awe, disbelief. Cael stood behind her, hands clasped, pride written quietly on his face. An old priest rose, voice trembling. "And you, my lady, what are you now?" Morel looked at her fading mark and smiled. "A bridge," she said, "between what is feared and what is free." The hall erupted in howls and applause alike. The sound shook the ceiling, but no one minded. For the first time, the noise was joy. That evening, the forest called to her again, soft and familiar. Morel slipped away from the feast, following moonlight down the old path to the waterfall. The crater was gone. In its place, the pool shimmered clear and calm. Her reflection stared back, older somehow, eyes steadier. A breeze whispered her mother's voice. "You did what we could not." Morel knelt by the water, touching its surface. Ripples spread outward, catching stars that hadn't yet appeared. She pressed her palms against the stone, breathing deeply. For the first time since she could remember, she didn't hear whispers of doubt or pity, only life. Cael stepped beside her, his limp faint, but his spirit strong. "The council meets again today," he said. "This time to rebuild, not to rule." Morel smiled faintly, then let them learn to listen. Below, human children ran alongside wolf pups in the snow, their footprints intertwining. "They already are," Cael murmured. Inside the great hall, the moon throne glows softly, not in dominance, but in welcome. Elders, farmers, and soldiers all sat together, no ranks, no walls. Morel addressed them not as queen, but as witness. "We've seen what power can do when it forgets compassion, so from today, the throne belongs to the people. The moon watches all, not to command, but to remind." Murmurs rippled through the crowd, agreement, awe, disbelief. Cael stood behind her, hands clasped, pride written quietly on his face. An old priest rose, voice trembling. "And you, my lady, what are you now?" Morel looked at her fading mark and smiled. "A bridge," she said, "between what is feared and what is free." The hall erupted in howls and applause alike. The sound shook the ceiling, but no one minded. For the first time, the noise was joy. That evening, the forest called to her again, soft and familiar. Morel slipped away from the feast, following moonlight down the old path to the waterfall. The crater was gone. In its place, the pool shimmered clear and calm. Her reflection stared back, older somehow, eyes steadier. A breeze whispered her mother's voice. "You did what we could not." Morel knelt by the water, touching its surface. Ripples spread outward, catching stars that hadn't yet appeared. "Thank you," she whispered. The silver pendant Liar had given her still hung at her neck. It no longer glowed. It didn't need to. Peace wasn't a spell anymore. It was a choice, daily and fragile. Behind her, the forest stirred. Liora stepped from the trees, smiling. "She'd be proud," the older woman said. "You carry her light." "And yours," Morel smiled. Liora bowed her head. "Then the world is in good hands." Back at the castle, the night stretched gentle and golden. Cael waited by the fire, cloak draped across his shoulders. "You disappeared again," he teased softly. "I needed to say goodbye," she replied. He nodded, understanding. "Tomorrow we begin something new. A council of both bloods. You'll need a seat among them." Morel shook her head. "I'll keep walking instead. Visit villages. Teach them what we've learned here." Cael's brow furrowed. "Alone?" "Not alone," she smiled. "With the moon." He laughed quietly, then embraced her. "You're still my daughter," he said, voice thick with emotion. "And you're still my king," she replied. For a moment, time held still, their breath, the fire, the entire world pausing to honor what had been restored. Then she stepped back and looked toward the window, where dawn's first painted the horizon. "It's almost morning," she whispered.
When the sun finally broke over Draylon, its light mingled with the moon's retreating glow, turning the sky into a sea of gold and silver. In that meeting of day and night, the kingdom found balance at last. Wolves howled not in mourning, but in praise. Humans opened their doors without fear. The forest sang with life reborn. Morel walked down the castle steps, each one leaving a faint shimmer of silver in her wake, soon fading into the cobblestones. She turned once, seeing Cael on the balcony, watching her go. He raised his hand in salute. She answered with a smile. Then she faced the open world, the same one that once ignored her, and stepped into it as its guardian, not its outcast. Above her, the moon lingered just a moment longer, bright enough to be seen even in daylight, as if blessing her path. And though her mark had faded, its light lived on, in every heart that remembered her story. The girl they once ignored had become the dawn that taught the world to look up again.